So recently, I had a very unique experience at a conference. And to be honest, I was hesitant to even share it. But one thing that I pride myself on is transparency, honesty, and openness because I believe that from my experiences, a lot of people can gauge or seek new eye opening opportunities or new eye opening information. So this past weekend, I was invited to a conference. Now, I felt like this was aligned with what I desired. On Christmas Day, my mom bought me this giant dry erase board. And on the dry erase board, I decided I was going to write my quarter 1 goals. And in my quarter 1 goals, I wrote down that I would like to attend 3 conferences for this year to continue to expand my personal development because ultimately, the more that I expand it, the more I can help and support my clients and my followers and my tribe. And so I was really excited, and shortly after that, I got a call from a nice gentleman that I didn't really know him too well, but I met him at a former conference, and he bragged about this conference. He's like, you need to be there. It's going to be life-changing. It's going to be amazing. Right after he called, I had a friend from church call me about this same conference. And so I started to do some research on it, and I found that like some really well-known people have attended this conference as well. So I'm like, wow, this must be a sign, and it aligns with the goals that I have written for quarter 1 for my business. So I'm going to go. And I went in with an open mind, hoping to focus on leadership and emotional intelligence and personal development, all of the things that I'm super passionate about. When I got to the conference, it was a lot different than I expected. And so it was a 3-day conference that was extremely lengthy. And one of the first triggers for me personally was that I struggle with hypoglycemia. It's a diagnosis that I've had since I was a teen. And I need snacks. I need things to fill my body, to feel good, and to make sure I have enough energy and that I don't have sugar crashes. And so one of the struggles that I had is that there weren't really any scheduled breaks. And so I was not able to get snacks to make sure that my body was nourished. So naturally, I started to feel under the weather. I started to feel down. I felt weak. I felt dizzy. But I wanted to press. I wanted to be there so bad because I just knew that there were a lot of things that I was supposed to learn. By the end of the second day, I was quite frustrated. It seemed very overwhelming. My energy felt off. It did not feel like I was having an opportunity to learn. There were a lot of things that they kind of pressured people to do in the conference. And so, but I am one of those people that's uber duper committed. When I commit to something, I'm like, I want to dig my heels in. I mean, I even think about reading. Like when I pick up a book, if I don't like it, I'll finish it just for the sake of like, I started it, I might as well finish it. And so I continued to stay all the way into the 3rd day. And by the 3rd day, I recognized that I was causing myself to struggle. I was uncomfortable. And I felt like it was an unnecessary circumstance where because I wasn't forced to be there. It wasn't for a job, it wasn't for a business credential, it wasn't because I had to, save face. I wasn't forced to be there, but just because of my level of commitment, I felt obligated to be there. And so in this brief moment, I asked myself, why am I staying here? Why am I doing this to myself? And I started to reflect on my commitment and why I'm overcommitted and where I've related this experience before. And I started to think back to my marriage and how I stayed committed in an unhealthy relationship because I made a vow. And I realized that sometimes we stay committed to the wrong thing. Now, don't get me wrong, I take commitment very seriously, and I think that when you start something, you should see it through. But there are times where we have to acknowledge that this isn't serving us, that this isn't healthy for us, that this isn't good for us, that this isn't benefiting us. I'm a firm believer that there's things that add value to your life, and there's things that take value away from your life. And it's okay to acknowledge that both things exist, but we have to make decisions so that we're making room for the things that are adding value to our life. And so in that moment, I decided I was going to leave. And I felt so guilty. I mean, so guilty. But it was almost like a switch clicked. And I said, you know what? I am going to step into my power. Time is a valuable resource, and there are millions of things that I could be doing with my time. I have committed to this. I tried it, not only for 1 day, not 2 days, but 3 days. So I've done my part. It's okay now for me to step back and acknowledge that this isn't working for me, that this didn't work for me, that this isn't serving me, that I don't feel good being here. And when I stepped out of the conference, I felt so empowered. And the reason I felt empowered is because I think there are so many times as women that we give up our power. We throw away our power because we don't feel like we don't want to hurt people's feelings, or we want to stay committed, or we feel like it's the right thing to do. But it's okay to acknowledge what serves you and what doesn't, and to remove the things that aren't serving you. And so from this experience, I learned quite a few things that I want to share with you. From this experience, the first thing that I learned is silence is compliance. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of times in our life that we're silent and we're just complying with what we're told to do, even if it feels unsettled in our spirit, even if it doesn't align with what we desire, even if it doesn't feel good. And I recognize that silence is not good for us. We have an obligation to stand up and to speak out about what's hurting us, what's making us uncomfortable, what's not working for us, right? The reality is you teach people how to treat you. And if you're silent and you're complying with things that are uncomfortable or unnecessary, or you don't feel good in, then you're going to continue to be in environments and around people and continue to build relationships that reinforce this ideal. The second thing that I learned is that on the journey of healing and finding yourself, there are going to be moments where you're pushed in between a rock and a hard place, and you're trying to figure out how to make everything feel right? How to make this person happy, how to make yourself happy. And it's okay to do what works for you. Even if other people don't understand it, even if it makes you feel a little guilty, the more you practice saying no to other people, the easier it becomes, the less uncomfortable you become. And more importantly, the more you're available to say yes to yourself. Finally, the third thing that I learned through this experience is that there's something that you can learn from every single opportunity or experience or circumstance or situation that you go through. A lot of times when we go through something that's frustrating or hurtful or chaotic or traumatic, we shut ourselves off to it and we think about the bad and we perseverate on the bad and we miss the lessons that are there. One of the quotes that I often share with my group and with my clients is that there's a lot of wisdom in our wounds. There's a lot of things that we can learn even from the bad things. That's ultimately what I mean. And so even though this experience was not ideal, it was not what I expected, and ultimately kind of frustrating for me, it was an opportunity for me to learn different things that triggered me, to learn different ways to step into my power and acknowledge my power, to learn things and choices that I'd like to make in my business and choices that I would like to avoid. One of the best parts about this conference is I had a awesome, beautiful, amazing woman who sat next to me majority of it, and she was 91 years old, and she had so much wisdom and insight to share with me. And one of the things that she said is that she was like, you die twice, right? You die once when your spirit leaves your body, and the second time you die is when your legacy no longer exists. And it made me start to reflect on what kind of legacy I want to leave, what kind of impact I want to have on the world, so that ultimately that part of me never dies, that part of me never leaves. And so there was something to be learned and something that I gauged from this experience, although it wasn't ideal. So again, I was very hesitant to share this because I believe that certain conferences work for certain people, and I don't believe that there's a one-size-fits-all box. Like what works for one person might not necessarily work for me. What works for you may not work for me. What works for me may not work for you, and it's okay to acknowledge and accept that. But I wanted to share that experience because I want you to know that as a leader in my area and as a counselor and as a coach and as a leader, ultimately there are moments where I too get uncomfortable and I get nervous and I have things that I have to heal from or overcome and be able to step into my power. But the difference that I've noticed in myself from my, the beginning of my healing journey to the other side is that I'm more accepting and more willing and more confident to be able to say that this isn't working for me, and there's no hard feelings, there's nothing bad about that, but I'm able to move forward from that, learn what I need to learn, and be able to move forward with confidence. And so I desire for you to be able to have that same experience, for you to be able to also step into your power. So I want you to think about right now, what is it that you're healing from? And where have you taken a moment and asked and allowed yourself to believe that maybe you're a victim, or allowed yourself to believe that you can't make any significant shifts or changes in your circumstances? I'm here to tell you that the first step to stepping into your power is acknowledging that you have it. And the second step is saying that what isn't working and being able to step into that power with confidence, acknowledging that you're making the right decision for you. So let me ask you a question. Where have you been playing small in your life? And what changes do you need to make to step into your power unapologetically? Comment below and let me know. Make sure you hit like and subscribe before you go. And until next time, I'll chat with you guys later.